When you have clothes that you love but you can't wear them anymore because they're too small, this is the sort of inspiration for that. I had two jumpers, similar colour, that I still wanted to wear, but I couldn't do anything with them because they were too small. So I decided to cut them up and share some knowledge at the same time. So I'll be introducing you to the basic tools, setting up a sewing machine, how to pin, basic stitches to use, back stitch, seams, little pockets, attaching sleeves, and showing you the finished garment. First rule of textiles, we call it fabric. Fabric, not material, not wood, lead or steel. We use fabric. Fabric, not material. We use fabric. You would literally get into a detention if you called it anything else. So the first part of any project is to draw a plan, a basic sketch of what you want to create. It's always good to do this, even if, like this for me, was very spontaneous. And I didn't actually plan on documenting it in a video. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, it took me, in general, almost a month or two, but obviously for you watching, it's about 9 days. So me recording it and having a social life and going and doing work and all the rest of it, it's much longer than just me designing it and making it right there and then. You've always got to consider the time that you're putting in as well as what you need to get done. So basic tools, scissors, pins, unpicker, sewing machine, and bobbins are essential to a sewing machine. Put the bobbin on, push the thread through the little hole and start pressing down on your pedal. Then once you've got the bobbin sewn up, you put it into the little locker and sew it through. Then you get your thread on top and you put it down and around, up, and make sure that the needle is right at the top so that then you can hook it around and make sure it's attached there, because if it's not, then you can have problems when you're sewing. Then the tricky part of getting the thread through the needle, and then you can just put it under the foot, the pressure foot, and you can get started. Now you should have a rough idea of how you want your garment to look at the end. So everything should be roughly pinned in place and cut up and reorganized. I mean, if you're doing it like me, then it'll be kind of difficult to make the exact same thing, because I'm just making it up as to what I want it to be. All your pins should be vertical when you're sewing. If they're not straight up the edge of your fabric, it will just, the sewing machine doesn't like it, so you will end up breaking your needle and your pins at the same time, and then you have to go and buy a brand new sewing machine. With basic sewing, it's always a straight stitch going forward with a back stitch. This ensures that your row of stitching doesn't break as easily, so it's secure, it's locked in. Then going and pressing on the reverse again at the end of it so that it's all sealed in and you don't have to worry about anything then. Obviously, remember to take out your pins. The more experience you get, the more likely you won't want or have to use pins. Then just to finish off the stitch that you've done, because I don't have a overlocker, I just have a sewing machine. This is the easiest way to make your seams neat and tidy and looking as close to professional as possible. Personally, I'm slightly lazy, so if I can just do it really quickly, then I will, but I'm a perfectionist as well, so I won't just, randomly sew it. I will go back and unpick anything that I feel doesn't look like it's going to hold or looks too messy. So just bear in mind, if you can do it right the first time, then do it right. And obviously that means using pins right from the start, and even now sometimes I feel like I can't hold a garment in place, so use as many pins as you need to, just to hold it in place, because sometimes it is quite tricky, like this part here where I was right up to one of the seams that I was recycling, and it's not until after I finished sewing it that I felt I could take out the pins and cut off those edges that I didn't need. So if you always feel like, oh well, I don't even need this because I'm gonna sew it, I don't know, 3 centimeters in, I don't need to have pins, and I don't need to have this part right now, so I'll cut it off. Don't cut it until after you've sewn it, because if you cut something, I mean with this whole garment, I am trying to make it look a bit scarecrowy and kind of shaped like a pumpkin. So it's okay because of my design that it has lots of lines going over it. Because I'm recycling 2 different garments, I have to have that flexibility of how the design will look. But just deciding, oh, I don't need this part of the fabric, I'm going to cut it off now, you're making a mistake already. Because what if you've made the garment too small and you've just cut that fabric off that you need? It's always good to sew something with a straight stitch first, and then if it's too close, you can just redo it. Here are 3 examples of seams that I would use. These aren't exactly what a textiles teacher would suggest to you, but these are options. You don't always have to think inside the box. You can be a bit more creative, especially if you're the one designing the clothes and making them by hand. So having a traditional seam where it's hidden and having one that's on the outside, that would mean that if it does break, you will just be there out and about with the seam unpicking itself. Obviously, the traditional way of hiding the seam inside is the easiest option. Then, of course, if it does come undone, I love safety pins, so I would put a safety pin on it. But that's up to you. Here, I kind of made a mistake because of how flexible the shapes of these pieces of fabric are. I had a little hole created, and I thought, well, I've got extra fabric from the sleeve, from one of the cuffs of the jumpers, so why don't I unpick it here? By the way, this is very difficult to film with 2 hands in the camera shot at the same time, so hope you understand the hard work I put in here. But be careful with really tiny stitches. The smaller the garment is, the more tricky it is. So with this, obviously you're not really going to see the entire garment, so it doesn't matter for me if it's too scruffy, because it's going inside and it's going to be hidden, and I'm attaching it here so that you can get into the pocket so that it is hidden as well, because I don't want it to be too obvious that I've got a clunky little pocket hidden. I want it to be hidden. And I'm just going to use scraps from the sewing machine, so whenever I cut off those extra little bits from me sewing all these lines over and over again, I have spares, and this is recycling time. So I'm going to stitch and tie a little knot so that it's secure, it's not going to come undone when I'm using it to put a penny in the pocket, and then I'm going to stitch it. It's just terrible trying to film while you're using 2 hands to stitch. Sometimes you will get little knots when you're stitching as well, which is always annoying, but just stay calm, go make a cup of tea if you're getting stressed out. You always need to take breaks. I mean, what day am I on here? Like day 3, maybe? Day 4? But as you can see, I got my secret little pocket now, and it's fitting with all the little stitch marks on it. Haha, stitches. And I've sewn across the line so that it's kind of hidden, With these I put little stars because it needs to kind of be secure so it's not banging your arm, because this is on one of the sleeves. But I've sewn across that line so it's hasn't got extra holes in it, and so that nobody can tell that it's there apart from these couple little marks. So yeah, that one's hidden. Then making more of a professional pocket. This, yeah, it's kind of like a army pocket, but I kind of had to be a bit more creative with it because the fabric is so flexible, because it's like a fleece. It's very bendy and I have to hold it with all these pins just to make sure that it doesn't move too much. So if it goes wrong, like I said, take a break, do it again. Don't get stressed out. I always get stressed out whenever I'm doing textiles, and you really don't need to. You should be enjoying making something. I mean, I was so proud when I finished this. It's been a while since I've done a project. Also, a good note, if you're adding something to your garment, make sure that it's the part that you're sewing it to is flat. Make sure you remember to clean your sewing machine as well. But because this garment is very patchwork type, it's okay for me to just randomly cut the sleeve, because I did feel like that one sleeve needed a bit more decoration as well, so having another bit to sew is not too bad. And remembering to go back to your little pieces of spare fabric so that you're using as much as possible. I mean, if you're being as eco-friendly as I am with this, then you should have a little pile of pieces of fabric, and don't be afraid to have random lines going about. It looks quite quirky, to be honest, with all these little stitch lines, and using as much of these two pieces garments as possible to not have any waste, because that's the whole point of me using these instead of going and buying a brand new one. So, finally finished another sleeve. I'm really happy with this one. Remember to leave a centimeter whenever you're leaving a seam. Some seams, you can't avoid it being very small, but the smaller it is, the trickier it is to sew. Your sewing machine will have a Mardy, and the larger the seam is, the more likely you will need to do a straight stitch and trim it to be 1 centimeter, because if it's too much, you've got to think about when you're wearing it, you're going to feel that seam. For this part of the sleeve, it was kind of awkward because I've never done an outside seam before, but I felt like I should go outside my comfort zone. Like I said, not everybody's perfect, and sometimes you do need a little help, and pins are great for that. Just don't pin yourself by accident. I mean, it's going to happen to you at least once if you're doing textiles, but you should take your time with it. Don't rush this. It's very awkward because you've got lots of fabric about. I mean, you're not making a dress right now, but you've always got to bear in mind that whatever you're sewing with your sewing machine, any fabric that you're not attaching needs to be pushed out of the way. So if it's easier for you to turn a garment upside down to sew it, then do that. There's no rule that says you can't. With this one, I felt like this sleeve was very plain and simple, and I had pieces hanging about from cutting up the other ones. So I thought, yeah, let's be a little bit quirky here as well and recycle. And this part was fiddly, and I needed to have a few cups of tea for this stressful part. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. I mean, once you're sewing, you will make mistakes. And with a garment like this, it's quite fun to experiment with that and to not worry. So this part was a little bit tricky. I haven't sewn a zip in a while, and this is a pretty big pocket, but I remember the basics. Obviously you want to trim it to be the right size. You want to check the area that you're going to sew it to, if anything is going to get in the way of the design. You know, you've got to pin the sides down, make sure that you've still got, like, I've got my words on it here, so I've got to pin it so the seam is nice and neat. I want to check that it's in the right place, so I pin it first and then pin it properly after I've tried it on. Then sewing the zip, obviously you want to cut it to the right size and just sew over that with a zigzag over and over. Then sewing the bottom side first. I go over it twice so that it's in the right place, just to make sure, and then I will go and sew along the edge of the pocket, because now I know it's in the right place, and then I can sew the top part of the zip. Zips are tricky and annoying, and when you're sewing it, a good tip here is to move the zip itself down when you're sewing along that line. So yeah, after sewing a couple times extra and then a zigzag just to give it that extra touch so everything's matching, I finished the pocket, and it's looking pretty cool and snazzy. Obviously if you want to do it a bit more professional, you don't need to go over it so many times, but I just wanted to add that so it looked like it fit all together. And I've only sewn it once. I did consider doing a zigzag over this, but I felt like I didn't really need it. So now I'm going to finish sewing the top of it. Obviously make sure you've got your pins. I decided to cut the side here because I felt like it was a bit lopsided with the extra fabric just on one side. So quick straight stitch and a zigzag just to finish it off to make it all flat and neat. And then I added some extra fabric at the side and cut both shapes for the sleeves. Try it on before you do this, make sure it's alright and it fits nicely. As I've already finished the sleeves, now I can sew them. So firstly, pin them vertically like I've already said, and you want to, sewing's annoying like this, you have to pin it inside out. So reverse your body of your jumper and then put the sleeve, so everything that's on the outside facing, so like your pocket should be on the inside, and so should your sleeve. So you want all the outside bits on the outside and all the inside bits on the inside. Then you just want to straight stitch, and after you want to trim it. Then do a straight stitch and then a zigzag to finish it off. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad. I'm quite enjoying it. It's it's a bit chunky, but I wanted that anyway. I wanted it to be oversized and, you know, be a snazzy, comfy jumper. I mean, it's got imperfections, and I made the pocket a little wonky when I sewed it, so it's got a weird little gathering, but I actually really love this, and I love that I made it myself and I've recycled, and yeah. And also my pocket is big enough for me to put a mini book, so then I can fit my giant phone in there as well. Yay! So I love it. I love the shape, and yeah, I'm really happy with this. So hopefully I've given you some good inspiration, and you can have a little dance in your homemade clothes and enjoy your little pockets and hidden ones and your zips and all the rest of it. The only thing I didn't add in this was sewing a button on, but I mean that's really simple. So in comparison, I think I've covered nearly everything. But if you really like this, then maybe I'll do another one that's a bit less of a beginner one. Oh, of course, I had to add my little necklace to the look. Oh, and just in case, the makeup that I did was very autumn vibe, so it went for my outfit. But here's a little close-up so you can see. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. Hope you enjoyed this, and yeah, hope I gave you some good advice. So now I'm going to get back to reading.